This is going to be a demonstration of the StoryNode Editor from pretty much zero all the way up through the startup of the tool itself. So I'm going to go ahead and import the package. This is the StoryNode Editor on Alpha 9. A lot of iterations here internally. It consists of all of the files as seen here. It's also going to be included with it is Lean Twing, one of my favorite tween packages to work with, open source here. We're going to import the package into this scene. There's pretty much nothing in the scene. Starts with a sample scene. Right now operating on 2018.3 of Unity. Once this finishes setup, when starting with the tool, I'm still going through streamlining the setup process. That's my biggest priority right now. Largest one is to make sure that the workflow for setting up the tool or setting up the scene itself doesn't require like a manual to read. Just 3 button presses. At the top here are the tools, the main primary tools that StoryNode Editor will use. The StoryNode Editor itself. And also the character roster that you'll see later in the settings. Here, this isn't a finalized look for it. It'll be changed, but the format, the layout of it certainly is. Create a story on the left, some options there. To start up the scene itself, I want it to be pretty darn easy. So you can essentially click on the first button there, the Story Hub, creates a centralized script that helps communicate everything together. Then the story canvas and a dialogue panel. So you just click those 3 buttons and everything pretty much is set up from there. There's nothing additionally that needs to really be done in the scene itself, except for additional changes. Right now, we'll go ahead and just fit the StoryNode Editor in place here on the right hand side. I'll put the scene in 2D mode so that we can see the dialogue panel itself that we'll be working with. This is a prefab specially designed to flex with any type of aspect ratio, mobile, widescreen, portrait mode. I'll show that in another demonstration. Alright, so we're going to also, like I said, these tools here, the toolbar is something I will be removing from the final release. Everything's going to be built inside of the StoryNode Editor itself, except for this character roster and the settings. Alright, so now what I'm taking a look at here is we're going to create a story. Hit the Create a Story button. You put in there a name for the story itself. I'm thinking of something original. Maybe like we can do like my story, or I'll probably do something like Hello World. We keep it like really simple for the programmers out there. You click on the Done option. There is a story. You can create as many separate stories that can operate parallel to one another in the StoryNode Editor. When you start, we open up with this empty canvas, like any type of node editor you may have seen from any other tool. And you can zoom out, zoom all the way in. And there's a hotbar that I added below here. The look of it will definitely improve later on, but you can easily see what types of nodes can be used in each type of canvas or each type of room, I call them. So each of these I call rooms, and in every single type of room you can use certain types of nodes. This is our narrative room. You can only use elements, creating the elements of the story or a film or anything like that. You can use like the beginning, middle, end of a story. You can create as many elements as you want, and these are set up very vaguely, so you don't have to follow necessarily a structure that anyone set up, including myself. You can set up the elements of your story in any way that you'd like. For simplicity, I'm just going to call them beginning, middle, and end, just so I can portray exactly what we're trying to do. Now, you can name and adjust the name of every node here in the right side on the inspector. You'll see there's a custom inspector where you can change the name of each node. And as you see me connecting each of these nodes together, they'll be named in sequence automatically. So you see as I disconnect it, reconnect it, the sequence adjusts, and it also can intelligently see, which node is designated as the introduction and which one's the outro. Now for some other special use cases, you can scale how large or how lengthy the introduction is in comparison to the others, element nodes. That's something much more advanced that I'll show you how that works in place later on. So you can actually make the introduction scale a lot longer in length in comparison to the middle, or you can make the middle a lot longer, depending on how much stuff you put in each element. So what's really nice is you can pack in as much stuff as you want into every element and then go from there. Now I've clicked on to the portal node, which you may have missed there. It takes me right inside of the element. So right now we're inside the element node. I'm creating what's called a few chapter nodes. These chapter nodes are also similar to the elements, but you can create as many chapters as you want. For this demo, I'm doing 3 chapters. And I connected them together. They're each put in sequence. We'll click on the portal button right here and we'll portal inside this first chapter. So here's the room. The chapter room is where actually the bulk of action takes place. You'll see a lot of nodes there on the hotbar below that we can utilize here. I'm only going to be demonstrating like the character and dialogue nodes right now. This is the character node. You'll see the character editor on the inspector on the right hand side. Everything is set up in a way where it's easy to read. There's space layout. I'm still working on the design, but I want everything to be easy to operate. Now, I clicked on create a character. We don't have a character right now. It opens up the character editor window. So you'll see there you have plenty of room and variables to add information for your character. Now I'm just going to import a couple of faces that I have on my own personal stories I'm working on really quick for demonstration. We'll convert those to a sprite really quick, and then I'm going to add the avatar, the face, into the character sheet. So you'll see how this actually will link into production of, say, a visual novel or any type of dialogue where you see the face and so forth. We'll give this person a name, Jones. And all of these fields are very open. The reason why is I wanted these fields to empower creativity. So for example, even including the gender or the race, there's not going to be a drop-down selectable. You're free to put in the type of race or gender or age or anything that you want there. There's no limits or presets. You'll see fields there for a description of your character. And you'll also have traits, and you'll see later that these traits are customizable, so you're not designated to use these traits. You can go into the settings, add as many as you want, remove them, or change the name. And the same thing with expressions. We can go ahead and add in multiple expressions straight from the character sheet, so that when you are actually processing the dialogue, you can change the expressions and the sprite being used. So this whole setup, what I'm hoping for is extremely easy and satisfying. So that's in place there. You'll have other fields below, like for the history of the character, the goals, what they're planning on doing, and also the apparel, the look. So I'm just going to place here some empty information. Our character looks obviously naked, so we'll put that in for appearance. This is what seems to be an industry standard. I've definitely been influenced by a lot of other tools out there in the industry when it comes to character development, so I pretty much followed that sort of standard. Now in the character, the node itself, I'm going to create another node. Now keep in mind these nodes are references, so they aren't the actual characters themselves, and you can pretty much change what that character, what that node, which character each node represents, so it's very flexible. I'm going to fill in this character sheet. As I'm doing that, let me also discuss that there's multiple ways to make characters, and these character nodes are not needed or necessary for linking into the node editor. They're just good reference points, but later on they can be used for any tools or expansions or further development. So what's really nice is over there in the inspector for that node, I can select now the character that I want to be linked to that particular node. So later on you can change that node or the character linked to it, and also the name of the node. So although that character has a name, you can change the name of the node. I have no idea why right now, you may need to, but it's important to realize that that flexibility is needed in case there's certain base situations for having that name up there. Alright, so you probably see how those nodes can be minimized and moved out the way. So it doesn't overcrowd the node itself. And this is what really is amazing here about the StoryNode Editor. You can pull out the character roster and you see how everything seamlessly connects together. You can create your characters from this roster here itself. We'll add in our third character, give her name Eve, and add in some more traits. But since everything is compartmentalized, and that's the whole design that I wanted for the tool itself, it makes organizing the flow of your story extremely easy, and also it allows you to work on any part of the story at one point in time. So you don't have to do it sequentially. You can start the working on your story from the end and move backward in time, and you can move pieces around too of the story, which definitely works for me when I'm creating work. I wanted to make sure that this tool also worked for me personally. Here's the settings. What I was mentioning before, these are attributes. You can add additional attributes and like expressions. So you'll see here I'm putting in an additional field for the expressions there, and once done I can add it. There are setup there or additional setup in the code for language, for additional languages. That's not going to be ready for the first release, but definitely later on down the line you can expect some good language options there. So here's a layout. I love how I can just go ahead and pull out all the characters at the same time, lay them out on the screen, and pretty much just see what I'm doing. And just kind of, get inspired, especially when you're working on story building or which direction you want to pretty much go in. It's great to just see those characters. So for the last character node, I went ahead and selected and assigned it to the Eve character. I'm just going to move them over there, and now let's go ahead and get started on the meat and potatoes of this particular story that we're going to play out here, Hello World. There's a right-click context menu, but I'm going to use the hotbar. I created a dialogue node. That's it. I connect it, and it's pretty much as simple as this. You pick a character. I pick Jones. I type in what he's going to say for the dialogue itself, and that's pretty much it. That's all that's really needed at that point in time. Now, I can go ahead and designate whether I want his avatar to appear on the left or the right side. By default, it is on the left side. And then also you can clear the other avatar itself, so only one is talking at one time or showing, and change the color of the text. There'll be some additional options. This is just the first go around. Now, give me a second here, and I'm going to go ahead and create another dialogue node, and we'll add an additional person or character in there. Let's go ahead and add in Amy. We link the next node. We'll have her appear on the right side. That way Jones can stay on the left. And let's go ahead and put in a something for Amy to say. Excellent. And now what we're going to do here is add in one more piece of dialogue there. Probably a response here from Jones. We don't want him leaving Amy hanging. This is my favorite part here. I'm going to make sure that Jones says, that one headline there, the headline of the story, Hello World, is what Jones says. So we put that in there. Everything's set up here. That's it. That's going to be our story. And that, remember, is inside of the first chapter of the first element of the story. So we can go ahead and definitely travel back through the story itself. So right here, we're inside the first element. And I'm going to name this chapter, now that I have an idea of what it's even about. I'm going to name this the world here. Alright, so I named this particular chapter. Let me go back and just take a rough draft look at everything here. Alright, and this is our story, the beginning, middle, end. We got our beginning in. And now I'm going to go ahead and play it. I don't really have a setup yet to create what's called the player, the story director. This story director I'm creating really quick. It directs any of the stories itself. There's some quick editor buttons. I'm just going to sloppily throw in the story, just drag it over to our story director, and then we'll play and see how that works out. And I'll show you how we can go back and make some quick changes and just how flexible the StoryNode Editor is. Now this is just dialogue itself, but the StoryNode Editor can do animation, camera movement, scene setups. The list goes on. Audio, music. I can't really wait to get this launched up and going here. So we're going to play the scene. As the scene starts up there, I can control the steps through the story or through the nodes. So I'll just click on the start node. Perfect. You see the character avatar show up. Alright, and we'll click next. You see here Amy's responding on the screen there. Avatar shows up. And Jones responds with his final words. Now, something that we may want to change is that it was a little bit hard to distinguish who was talking really. So I'm going to go back and change the color of the text so it's more obvious that Amy's talking instead of Jones at one point in time. And then also I'm going to probably clear out Jones for just a moment for clarity's sake. So it only shows Amy on the screen at once. So I'll make sure I select clear avatar so it clears the unused avatar in the dialog box here. Let's go ahead and play that back again and see our changes that took place. Alright. I have a force button here so that you can focus or refocus here on the dialogue itself. And here we go. So we're going to play it. Alright, and it shows up in green. Great, and it clears the other avatar. And we have the final words from Jones. And that's pretty much it. So this is just the setup here. I'll have more to demonstrate over the week. Thank you for everyone's patience, and have a great week.